I thought we should make the whole episode about fishing, but you disagreed.
Yeah, people don't tune in for that. We are going to talk soybeans and corn, and two big stories here. One's fundamentally not bullish, one's turning the corner and is starting to be fundamentally bullish.
Can't wait to hear it.
Welcome to Hedge Heads, where hosts John Prischmann and Ryan Tungseth discuss commodity markets, hedging, and anything related to trading futures. Remember, the risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. These are opinions only and not trading advice. While no one knows where the market's going, they're not afraid to share some ideas.
Well, John, I just got back from running a race in Whitewater State Park and noticed some shocking info. Let's see. Oil, Iran, all this stuff is great during the week. And then on the weekend, everything falls apart.
We've seen a pattern. We've seen a pattern here. Now we're approaching the deadline tomorrow, and everyone's just wore out from this back and forth. I'm sure, obviously, there's real lives at stake here, but it's, when it comes to the markets, we've seen a lot of what's going on. And, it is the exact same pattern. Like you say, it looked like there was a ceasefire. It looked like the straits were open on Friday. Time to go home, enjoy the weekend. Within hours, it was apparent that it wasn't open. And now we're putting holes inside of ships that are running blockades. Beans don't seem to matter or mind, and they're going to be the one most affected by China not buying soybeans. But they're overly optimistic, and so people want to know, why are the markets moving up? If there's no news, maybe the market knows something. Why is it up here? This actually happened one other time, and I've mentioned it a few times, and that's 2008. They started buying a number of different commodities, gold, silver, not gold and silver, actually not as much as they have been this last run up, but oil was 120, climbed to 150. Corn, ethanol was just coming out, went to 840. So and that's the reason why on the insider and emails have really slowed down. You don't know how high this could go. It went to 840 that year in corn, and that was partly because of ethanol. This feels a lot like what's happening in soybeans with soybean oil. Like, all of a sudden, if you do the math, we're not going to have enough corn. And, all these numbers come out and it looks perfect. Like, it doesn't matter if we grow a bumper crop, we're not going to be able to keep up with this demand. All these projections that you have and then reality are two different things. But don't underestimate, look at soybean oil. It was up almost 4% today for no reason at all. Or maybe there was a reason. It just, the idea that we're going to turn this into biodiesel and use it all and we won't be able to produce enough. The crush is excellent, by in part because of the soybean oil price and the meal price. But it's a very fragile everything. It also went from 840 to 297 in that year, the same year in 2008. So my point is that one needs to start playing this as a market that could completely collapse, especially with the fund position. It's setting up just like 2008. Now, others will argue it's real. The traders know something, or they must know something. Why are we at 16, 17 cents a carry? Beans were up 9, 10 today, and they didn't even bull spread. The July-November bull spread isn't working. The spread up front's not working. November hasn't been working. So even though we're climbing, all the internal show, just like in 2008, this was not a real demand-led market. Now, on the other side of the aisle, corn, that is a demand-led market. It's just the supply is too high. But I don't like the way the funds are positioned this early in spring. It's going in fairly quickly. There's going to be rain, in the east, and guys are in Iowa. I was talking to a guy today. It's a little bit behind, but so far so good. And also with the beans hanging in here and corn having a hard time following, it also leans more towards there probably will be more bean acres, and guys will argue that too. So what we have is a 2008 light setup, I'd like to call it, where these guys are just blindly buying commodities for inflationary pressures that they see with oil. But now cattle's learning a hard lesson already. That's a market that surged with oil about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which is the exact opposite of what it would normally do. It would say, hey, if consumers are spending more on gas and energy, they're going to buy less They have less disposable income to buy higher priced meats. That's the way it's always worked. And guess what? That's the way it worked this time too. We're already seeing demand struggle going into Mother's Day, which is highly unusual for cattle, and cattle starting to set back on that. So,
I want to point out it's not just the consumer either. When you think about it, like diesel is outrageous right now.
Yeah.
And so that's affecting transport. It's going to affect planting, right? I mean, it's going to affect the cost of
everything. And then the argument is, well, if it costs that much to plant, then I have to get paid this to make money. And unfortunately, that's never worked that way either in the markets. And the market, what'll happen is if you go to prices too high above the world, if it's cheaper to import, we will start importing it. And I'm talking beef, and that's already starting to happen. There's a concerted effort to get imports. Or if beans go high enough against the world price, we'll eventually import meal, oil, or whatever we need to, because that's how they will make money. They will arb this if there's a possibility. And I'm not cheering for it, but that's just the way the markets have always worked. So it doesn't do us any good to ration demand in a market that doesn't need rationing, which would be soybeans. Corn, I've talked about a lot. That's a very different market. The large supply that's still held over is the only thing holding that market back. Much more bullish than the soybeans. The outlook's much more bullish. But, that was a mouthful. So, again, I think this is like a 2008 type kind of light, like half the power of 2008, because that was actually pretty powerful. But this idea that you can invest in commodities for inflation works really good until the day that it doesn't, and then that's when the wheels come off and you can't catch a bid.
Yeah. Well, so that being said, like, I assume you're looking at options. What months are you looking at? How are you protecting some of these? And then I'm just assuming from what you're saying, you're looking at the put side of beans, and are you still thinking courage calls on corn, or what would you look at on corn?
Yeah, I was early on puts before. So you look at corn, we'll go over that first. We haven't really gone high enough to put anything under corn. Corn's stuck in this kind of this stalemate. It's gone all the way to what, 497 and for December, and then we've fallen back into the 470s now. I think we're 480 something or 481 today, somewhere in there. We're a little bit under that. So corn doesn't have that. For this time of year, it doesn't have that downside, and puts are probably going to do more damage than anything. Sure, there's going to be guys that sell calls, buy puts, protect, old crop prices. That's actually worked the last couple of years, but not me. Again, I've been very patient, and you notice, and the insiders probably have noticed that I've gotten very quiet. I've mentioned that sell incrementally on the way up on the price levels that make sense for your farm. That's all you can do in this market. But back to the ones I'm looking at. So I got in early on some of these bean puts, and I have some Julys on. I think we're pushing this back.
You did a July contract?
July.
John, I thought you learned your lesson.
Puts, calls, never calls in July.
Never calls, just
never
puts.
Calls, just
okay.
Puts. So September, we have September and November now. You're starting to get very attractive levels. Now, you can be one of two camps that this has changed forever, just like they said in 2008 with ethanol. Change corn forever. There's articles like goodbye $6, or it's going to be hard to fall under $6. But of course we are weather dependent, but these back in you can get decent stuff, in the 11s in November right now. I think it was 20. Some guys were kind of calling and checking in, and on some prices, there was like 24 cents for something very reasonable way back there. I think $11.20s, $11, I think was maybe 20. What is it?
How about I give the numbers as of today, Tuesday? They will not be valid by the time the market opens in like 6 hours from now. But 11. Oh, hang on. Let me get the right month, because I looked at that price and I said, "There's no way that's the right." I was looking in July. July is
very reasonable.
Very reasonable.
There's a lot of time in that.
Yeah, 23 cents was the last $11 put trade of the day. They do ramp up quick though, because like 11. 60 at the money is 50 cents.
Which is actually very, very good for this time of year. So if you are worried about downside and you want your upside still open, you could just buy a 50-cent put and just let it ride in the summer. We're getting up to levels where it makes sense to start doing this. We're definitely not recommending doing it. But if you want to see what the summer weather holds and you don't trust this bean rally, we're starting to get affordable. We were just starting to get affordable where it made some sense in corn, and then we fell off. But beans are starting to provide that opportunity. And if you look at markets that go up into spring and early summer, generally your May into your early June time period is your best windows for these puts. So we do have sometimes seasonally speaking, but I don't like how this doesn't feel like a real market. You're just not seeing that demand. This is all China's going to buy, or China's going to do this, or China's going to bear hug me when I get to, Xi's so happy that he can't wait to see me. Well, we just put a hole in the side of one of their tankers that was headed to China. So I wouldn't say that demand is guaranteed. So I'd really be looking at getting a floor under soybeans, because again, back to when we first started, you can't underestimate what these inflationary buying sprees can do. This is very little money for Wall Street. They may end up buying a lot more of everything like they did in 08. Like it looked like it was very high priced at $6.50 for corn on very poor fundamentals, but we did run up to $8.40. So never say never with these guys. But again, reality will eventually show up. You do have to sell this. Some argue the USDA's numbers are right. We don't have any beans. Definitely, I don't believe that. We have a lot of carry in the market, and that is not normal for this time of year at all. Like, you don't see these prices with this kind of carry basically ever. Just as in 08, corn had full carry in between July and December. Without looking, I think it was like minus 17. And it's like minus 17 right now. So these are fundamentally bullish markets. There isn't secret cash stuff going on. But what I do like, though, is when corn dipped, cash strengthened up very, very quickly. And this is in April. This did not happen the last couple of years at lower prices, or very comparable. Last year it was falling. So last year it would dip and keep on dipping, and cash would keep on dipping. So you remember when I say watch cash and basis? This is your first sign that there might not be as much corn as there's been the last couple of years, or demand's that much better, soaking up all this excess supply. Because now it seems very sensitive to when corn falls, that you get cash market coming up very quickly. Keep your eye on that. This is why I'm turning on corn. When you see stuff like that, that's a very, very good sign that physically that things are changing. Again, the for corn, it's like turning a giant barge around. It takes a long time. Where beans can turn on a dime, corn's a much larger market. And then you have wheat. Throw wheat in there. We dropped another four points on Kansas wheat, among the worst crops we've seen in quite a while. And what is it? Only 35% good to excellent for the entire winter wheat crop. So in the past, we've had poor crops, and it did not mean higher prices. But in this inflationary buying with, Iran possibly restarting tomorrow, it's really flinchy to the upside. So back to the marketing side of stuff.
Before you go into that, you talk spreads on the from the corn side. I do think the soybean spreads are important to talk about that side. So July 16 cents. May's 16 cents under.
Yeah,
July.
May is 16 cents under.
And November's 23.5 cents over November. I mean, in bullish years, that's close to $2.
When it gets actually tight, you're gonna see it in the July-November soybean spread. 23 cents is not, that's not horrendous, but it is definitely not, for the price action, for the buying that we're getting, that is not a high premium at all. July-November is very, very commonly inverted. Not so much in corn, but it is in beans, and it makes sense. So we're gonna have a larger crop in November. And the supply, as it dwindles into spring, they need to bid. The crushers need to bid, continue to bid. By the way, the crush is outstanding. That is the one good thing about domestically beans. But that is not a healthy look either. As we've climbed here, none of these spreads, they've all gotten wide. They've narrowed the inverse in July, November. May, July hasn't gained even a penny, which is one of the most important ones to see what's going on in the cash market. And then November, which was at 50, started falling. I think that was at 24 today. So everything's coming down. So the foundations of beans are very, very weak. Certainly that can change, where the foundations of corn are starting to strengthen up. And this is, really what we're devoting this one to talk about, is starting to see these early signs, or starting to see the warning signs in soybeans. And again, you'll find a lot of arguments in between, but I'm a big spreads basis guy. I think
you're going to do a corn bean spread.
It's been talked about. That can be a very rough ride, that one, especially when beans are your short leg. And one would think that is going to come in line if the fundamental read is correct, but be ready for a journey on that one. That is not a straight line.
Bring your checkbook.
Yeah. Yep. It's quite a ride, and it doesn't have to come in line before you run out of money. So be very careful with that. But the real spread is 2 corn for every 1 bean. So if you were going to do it, it'd be 2 corn for every 1 bean short. Now you could I was looking at more on the option side of stuff. I'd rather be selling a corn September put, looking to buy a corn call, and then doing variations of soybean puts. I don't think I want to sell a soybean call to buy a put, but these are the things I'd be willing to talk about this time of year, trying to figure out that combination, which I do like, but trying to do it in maybe a safer way. And then of course you could just buy a corn call and a bean put. That's not quite what I'm looking for there.
Right.
Corn doesn't move fast enough up, and that's the problem.
Options on corn are super tough. I mean, they
can work really good. It's just not that often.
No, versus beans just have more volatility. When they move, they move.
Yeah, and the options are chronically underpriced, puts and calls. You get your direction right in beans, you're going to make money in options. Where corn, that's not necessarily the case.
You can make money in options if you get out in the right spot.
Yeah, that's
it. You're going to.
Yeah,
just to clarify.
Getting out is pretty much 80% of the battle in options.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that's what people don't tell you is, making money in options, or being up money in options is actually very, very common. Getting money out of options is a completely different story.
I've experienced that twice this year.
Yeah, leaving with the actual money. It seems like if you take it, and then it's the easiest. Let's say you have bean put on, you take it. I got a nice $600 profit pretty quick here. You can count on that thing dropping another $1 every day, and not even a bounce where you would have stayed in. If you decide to ride it, that thing it'll go right back to zero, and then whatever you put in that option. As long as you know that's what your option is going to do to you, you'll be a good option trader. It just seems to work out. It, of course, doesn't, but it feels that's the way it always works out.
My classic move, because it feels like you should be able to avoid that, is you just buy multiples, right? So when you're at your profit, you take a few off and you leave a couple on. And and I do that every time and just lose all the extra money that I should have had.
Yes.
It's so frustrating.
And then you start getting into the spec side on hedge side, which is what's happening in cattle right now. A few of these guys actually bought some puts very near the high here in feeder cattle, and now we're struggling with that profit looks pretty good on these. Do I trade it? And then you got to go back to, why did you buy that? Did you buy it to make money or to protect that price through October? And these are all decisions that are always very hard to make. Clearly getting out of any feeder put up any amount of money has been the right move. One of these times, it's not going to be the right move. And if you take your hedge off to try to make $3,500 or $5,000 really quick, that could end up costing you $50,000 or more on your cattle. So it's never easy in hedging at all. And we don't claim that it is. Every decision these guys make, is their own personal decision. If you don't feel like you have downside risk, you take it off. Back in the olden days, which wasn't actually that long ago, but 15, 20 years ago, the whole thing was a bank would have you put a put on, or you short a corn futures, and you would just lock that price in. And no matter what, you wouldn't touch that thing. You would just stay with it no matter what. You could see that corn drop $2 or $1, and you'd be up $5,000, knowing that it's probably not going to go down. Your banker wants you to keep that on there for protection. That's the way it was way back when. Now, there's a lot more advanced strategies where you're grabbing that, buying a cheaper put, locking some of that premium in. There's a lot of things you can do, but that's just the way it was back then. Like you're going to be in that till that thing expires because it just guarantees the bank's money back. But it's gotten a lot more complicated nowadays. And if I was a producer, I would definitely lean towards the gray area where I'm trying to trade my hedge, meaning getting out in meaningful spots, using seasonals, using, whatever you need to use. If I didn't feel like I had a lot more downside, I'd be getting out. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's my nature. I'd always be fiddling with my hedges if I was a producer with that. Other guys run it by the book. I mean, they have their numbers figured out and they are going to stick with their plan no matter what. I definitely have those clients. And that's really impressive to me because I have none of that in me.
Well, and it is so producer dependent. It's so operation dependent. Everyone is different.
Yeah,
and so we say that probably every episode, but it's true.
It's very true. And you just know out there's guys that know the exact numbers, and the only risk they're going to have is basis risk, which can be substantial. But on the basis side of stuff, I have a feeling they have the numbers worked out there. They don't do that side of it here that often. But the basis numbers are probably worked out as well to where these guys are within a few pennies of knowing exactly where their profits are. It's actually really impressive when guys get that into it and they know the numbers. And these guys are out working hard. I mean, anytime I talk to these guys on the phone, they're fixing fence. They're getting the next crop ready. It's not like they're sitting around. I don't know that they work on it all day, but their brain works in that way to where it is very planned out. And then you'd have a guy like me buying a bunch of corn puts, looking for a big hit, and then I'd be getting out and looking for another spot to get back in. Everybody has their different journey in their hedging, and certainly the bank gets involved in some of it too, where you don't have much of a choice. Like I said, they just you have to have this hedge on or something to protect it. Million shades of gray out there. So if you want to work on getting better, I definitely see what works. I definitely see what is a weakness. And you can always hit me up and I'll tell you many stories about successful hedgers versus guys that struggle a little bit and everything in between.
Well, John, I think we need to get to the most important part of the episode.
Oh boy, what's that?
Let's talk fishing. You got a little.
Oh yes.
Talk a little fishing before we close this out.
This is the time of year where there's just a little sliver here in Minnesota, which it's the same in a lot of states, but Minnesota, the sliver is really slim. Where nothing's overgrown, grass doesn't need to be mowed. The fish are starting to bite, and birds are just starting to come back. And it's just this fun time. I usually head a little bit south here, border water, and start fishing. I'll probably work from the camper for a few days. We'll be back for the podcast next week. But yeah, I really look forward to it. And it won't, pretty soon it'll be 93 degrees, and it'll be too in buggy. And we'll be complaining about that. But boy, is this first month, like right now into like mid-May, early June, you can't beat that here in Minnesota. So I definitely am going to get some fresh air. And after the markets, the way these have been, I mean, I think everybody needs that.
Ready for spring for sure. You need the sun. Need some time outside. Get to touch grass, as they say.
You touch some grass. But I do like the markets are at higher prices where guys you have time to think about your decisions. You don't have these tiny windows that you got to worry about. So you have better marketing opportunities this year than we've had. So I'm thankful for that. It's just, tomorrow it all starts all over again. We have no idea if oil's going up $10 or if a deal is going to be struck at the last hour, or if, it goes the other way really bad and then the next day it's fixed. Just get expected for that yo-yo ride. It's like Russia, Ukraine. Eventually the market's going to start not trading that, and it won't be so flinchy to all this news. But be thankful that we have better markets to hedge in, and we're getting to an exciting time of year where weather is going to be a big factor. You're going to hear a lot of it's too hot and dry there, it's too droughty here. The West is really dry. There's no doubt about that. The East is dry in spots, but we're getting to that time of year where everybody can argue about the weather too.
Absolutely.
Yep. Look forward to it.
Well, I'm getting excited to talk heat dome and all that stuff, but let's wrap it up
Super
there.
El Nino. This is a
Super El Nino.
Yep.
We get to talk about that too.
Yes, it's going to affect devastating effects. I've read in 1844 it was the worst ever, and this is lining up to be very similar. There was famine, there was floods, there was drought. So they're hyping it up already.
So I will say, my wife calls me Corky Barlow. Sometimes, for those who don't know, the local weatherman Barlow, and then Corky. What show is that from? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I knew exactly what you're talking about.
So she calls me Corky Barlow because I love the weather.
Yeah, well,
let's go. I'm ready to talk about it. So, and I will take that. I've earned that nickname.
And if anybody's in, west central Minnesota, a little south, and want to go fishing, I'm gonna be out there.
Leave your number.
Yeah, well, text me. You have the number. I'm gonna actually keep it up. I don't
go back and listen to last episode if you want his number.
Get a bunch of guys that want some free food. Yeah, so no, I'll be out there. There's going to be guys in the boat, but every once in a while I have an opening. So if you're ready to go fishing,
you're not allowed to take my spot when you text them.
Yeah, yeah, it is popular unless the wind picks up, which is likely, and the cold. Then the friend list gets really short when that happens. No, look forward to being outside.
Days. Yeah. Do you remember the last? Sorry, this is probably not podcast worthy, but the last tournament you and I fished was on my anniversary last June.
Was it windy?
It was in June, and we were wearing puffers. I had to steal a raincoat from you. We were freezing. My anniversary is June 7th. I fished a tournament with John on my anniversary. And I'm still married. Why wouldn't you? But it was so cold. I had 4 layers on, and we didn't place by point.
Oh yeah,
pounds.
Yeah. It was a heartbreaker. Yeah, it was freezing cold in May too. I mean, it was after fishing opener, and absolutely frigid here. We've been getting beat up by the spring a little bit,
man.
But somehow the crop comes.
Yeah. And I like fishing in the cold too.
I don't mind it.
All right, we better wrap it up. Everyone's bored by now, but if you stuck with us this long, thank you.
Hey, we stuck the small talk in at the end. As I've read on Twitter, people do not like small talk at the beginning.
Yeah, and also if you made it through all this is where John gives his secret. Best thing to watch is
for fishing, or are we talking markets?
Markets. Let's hear it. Let's sneak in one surprise if anyone listened this long.
Well, no, exactly. What is a surprise?
We already talked about it. I'm going to say, I am watching November bean puts very closely.
Yeah, the beans historically, if you can.
Normally a July guy. I'm watching November bean puts.
I like corn calls and I like bean puts. I just don't know exactly what I want to do there yet. This is the areas that I'm kicking the tires on. I like both those sides. And you say to yourself, how can they both work? Well, it's just the setup this year. They both very well might work. They both might not work. But I like the fundamentals of corn turning. And I think the fundamentals of beans I think you got a good crush, and that's all you have going in beans. I think it's a paper tiger.
Ooh, tigers.
Yep. So when they exit beans, I think it's going to be ugly.
Sounds good. Thanks, John.
Yes.